Welcome back to Tactic. We are now 9, 10, 11 days in the World Cup. Who knows? 48 teams have become, by my rough count, about 30 something teams who could still actually qualify, and 18 teams who probably can, but maybe can and can. But FIFA's new third place one means a lot of them still technically have hope. The 48 team World Cup is full. There are more matches than I have hours in a day I'm eating between Japan and Spain. Anyways, hey, so Germany are through to the knockouts for the first time since 2014 when we became world champions. Saturday night in Toronto, they beat the Ivory Coast 2-1 in what was, until the 68th minute, not the match I would have written you to expect. Ivory Coast led 1-0 after Frank Cassie buried a rebound in the 30th. They were better team for an hour when you look at the score. Then Nagelsmann did the thing that wins you tournaments. He made a triple substitution at the 60th minute, brought on Deniz Undav and Nadim Amiri and Jamie Leveling, and the bench reshaped the match in 8 minutes. Undav scored in the 68th, Undav scored again in the 90th, plus 2 goals from a sub, 2 goals from a guy who watched Curaçao 7 from the bench for most of the time as well, but then came on and also scored and assisted. The match was Germany's first real test of the tournament, and they passed it because the coach made the right call when his starting 11 wasn't doing it. We're going to do a proper coach's eye later because this is, of course, the lesson of the week. Also this week, Cabo Verde drew with Uruguay 2-2. That's after they drew Spain 0-0 last week. Population, I checked, I counted by myself, 600,000. 2 draws against tournament heavyweights. They're now joined second in Group H with a real chance of qualifying. If Uruguay loses to Spain, what could happen, and if Cabo Verde draws in the last match again, they could go through as second in their group. What else? Curaçao earned a 0-0 with Ecuador. Their goalkeeper, Eloy Room, remember the name, made 15 saves. The most by a single keeper in 90 minutes of a World Cup match since records began in 1966. Thank you, Dr. O'Neill. Türkiye are out, eliminated after 2 games. They had, and I also counted by myself, 62 attempts at goals across both matches and scored 0 points, 0 goals. The most effort without a goal in any 2-match span in World Cup history. They take that record and they go home if they dare. And the first mouth-covering red card in the new rules era was issued at this exact match. Miguel Almiron, Paraguay, covering his mouth in confrontation with Mulder. And the exact rule I predicted would produce a viral moment at this tournament, it produced one in week 1. I told you so. We called it. Stay tuned for more calls. What else? Belgium are quietly bottling it. 2 draws, no wins. The team I tipped pre-tournament as the team nobody was talking about. Apparently I was right that nobody was talking about them. Now everyone is. They've drawn Egypt and Iran. They look very uninspired. Spain's finally rolling. They beat Saudi Arabia 4-0 on Sunday after the Cabo Verde draw. Lamine Yamal scored his first World Cup goal. Wasn't fit enough to start the game before, which is why we got a 0-0. That's what they say. And but let's see. But hey, at least they're on the on a roll now, or at least they're on the right track right now. Let's see how it goes. We all know that Spain are not the best when it comes to World Cup records, but let's see how it goes this time around. In the second half of the show, we're doing volleyball this week. By the way, I went to 2 VNL women's matches live here in Bangkok at the indoor stadium at Hua Mak. Thailand played Canada, and they played the Netherlands, and they played Bulgaria. I went to watch Bulgaria, 2 Bulgarian games, and I watched the other games on volleyball TV when volleyball TV wasn't crashing. And well, I've got a few observations. One of them being that even the pros can't pass for their lives, and I think I know why, but we'll get there. I'm Sasha, 20 years coaching team sport. This is Tactic. the show where we watch sport the way a coach watches it. Let's go. All right, let's start with the first segment of the episode, the World Cup recap, right? So, group by group, real quick. Let's start with Group E, Germany's group. Okay, Germany 2, Ivory Coast 1, already covered. Cassie 30th, Undav 68th, Undav 90th plus. Coach's eye coming in a second. Germany through with a match to spare, first time since 2014, first time since 2006 that they won the first two games. They play Ecuador on Thursday, I think Thursday, in the final group game. Ecuador, Curaçao drawn on zeros. This is a big story because Curaçao, the smallest country ever at a World Cup, I saw on a shirt, took a point off Ecuador in Kansas City, I believe. Their goalkeeper, as I mentioned in the intro, Eloy Room, made 15 saves, 15. It's the most by a goalkeeper in 90 minutes of a World Cup match since they started keeping records in 1966. Thank you, Dr. O'Neill. Ecuador had 305 XG. Curaçao had 0.48. The XG difference says Ecuador should have won 3-1. Football said they didn't. That happens when a keeper has the day Eloy Room had, right? This is what a 7-1 loss followed by a 0-0 draw looks like. They got rolled by Germany and immediately got better. Curaçao, still alive in the group, will face Ivory Coast, I think, also on Thursday. Standings right now: Germany 6 points, Ivory Coast 3 points, Curaçao 1, Ecuador 1. Group H: Cabo Verde, Spain, Uruguay, Saudi Arabia. Cabo Verde 2, Uruguay 2. Amazing. Kevin Pina, he actually opened the scoring with a free kick from 32 meters, the longest range goal of the tournament so far. Cabo Verde's first ever World Cup goal. We then had Araujo and Canopio scoring back-to-back goals for Uruguay just before the half. Then in the 61st, Uruguay's keeper Fernando Muslera made a mistake, raced out of his goal to clear a loose pass and missed, and Cabo Verde substitute Elio Varela took advantage to roll the ball into an empty net. 2-2. Now Cabo Verde are joint second in the group with 2 points, and they face Saudi Arabia in the last match. Maybe there's something in it for Cabo Verde. Two side notes from this match: Cabo Verde's goalkeeper was Sinya, the 40-year-old guy, and Uruguay's goalkeeper Muslera is also 40 years old. They became the first pair of 40-year-old goalkeepers to play the same World Cup match ever. The football gods are doing some strange work this tournament. We had Spain 4, Saudi Arabia 0. Spain bounced back from their 0-0 draw against Cabo Verde. This time Oyarzabal actually touched the ball. Lamine Yamal scored as well. They're up and running now. Let's see what's happening next. So far we have Spain 4 points, Cabo Verde 2, Uruguay 2, Saudi Arabia 1, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't Saudi Arabia lose both games? So they should have 0. Anyways, Cabo Verde is still live. Group D, Turkey is out. Turkey is 0, Paraguay 1. Turkey lost 2-0 to Australia, match 1. Then they dominated possession against Paraguay. At one point, it was like 79% or something. And they lost 1-0. Combined across the two matches, they had 62 shots. They scored 0 goals. It's the most effort without a goal in any two-match span in World Cup history. Montella's side had Kenan Yildiz in great chance after great chance. Arda Güler as well. They hit the bar, they hit the post. They had Müller's header in the 33rd minute of the Paraguay match, hitting the crossbar and the post and stayed out. The football gods were not with Turkey. Turkey are out after 180 minutes. As a coach's eye footnote a little bit, in the 45th plus 3rd minute of this match, Paraguay's Miguel Almiron covered his mouth during confrontation with Mulder. A video referee saw it. The on-field ref reviewed it on the screen. Red card, the first mouth-covering red card in the history of FIFA football. The rule we explained 2 weeks ago, the one I said would produce at least one viral moment at this tournament, produced its first moment in week 1, and it did not decide the match. Interesting enough, Paraguay played the entire second half a man down and still won. Crazy. But the rule isn't just a rule, it can change matches. This time, Turkey was not able to capitalize on it. What else do we have? We have USA 4, Paraguay 1, USA 1, Australia 0, Americans is The Americans are through. USA are top of Group D and through to the knockouts. In Group C, we have Brazil still fighting it, Morocco still good. Brazil, Haiti 3-0, finally looked competent. Vini Jr. scored, of course. They needed it after the Morocco draw, but the second match win was supposed to happen, right? The question is whether they look like a team that can win this tournament, and I don't think they do just yet. They play Scotland Wednesday. Let's see how they deal with that. Morocco's progress continues. They're doing what they did in 2022 as well. Be hard to beat, score from set pieces, work the wings. I wouldn't be surprised if they would be topping Group C at the end. Um, Group F, we have Sweden getting crushed by the Netherlands after they crushed Tunisia in their first game. Um, Netherlands slowly playing themselves into a tournament team. So good job for the Dutch team. Japan also finally found the grooves. Japan 4, Tunisia 0. Now Japan are on 4 points across 2 matches, just like the Netherlands. They look like a team that could actually make, I think, quarterfinal this time. They beat Spain and Germany in 2022, we know. Now they hammered Tunisia and held the Netherlands. So getting there. In Group I, we had Norway demolishing Iraq 4-1. Haaland scored, Oliver scored, of course they did. And Norway looked the part we expected them to look, so let's see how it continues. We had France 3 and Senegal 1. In the other Group I opener, France looked good. Alexi Lalas would say France looked arrogant. Zlatan would disagree and would say if you have a brain, they looked confident. Norway will play Senegal at the time of this recording. On paper, that should be easy, but let's see how that goes. Senegal is reportedly having lots of issues in their training camp with the organization. Let's see how that reflects itself in the game. In Group J, we had Argentina rolling, beating Algeria 3-0 with Martinez playing well, and Messi, of course, being on the score sheet with a hat trick. Next game for Argentina is against Austria. That should be a bit tougher. Let's see how my Austrian neighbors are doing. We then had Group G, Belgium, as I mentioned in the intro, pretty underwhelming with 2 draws. They scored 1 goal in 180 minutes. The team that I said pre-tournament as the team nobody was talking about, well, now everyone's quietly noticing they're not that great. Egypt drew them, and then Egypt actually won yesterday. They have to play New Zealand, which should not be much of a problem, but still interesting to see how much they struggle. When it comes to the hosts, Mexico has 2 wins, USA has 2 wins, Canada drew once and then blew Qatar away. All 3 hosts are positioned well for the knockouts, which is good for the tournament overall. Okay, that's the recap. Let's jump into the analysis. Let's do Germany probably, okay? So, that's the reason why we write tactic like we write tactic, like we write it in German. So, the coach's eye, how Nagelsmann won the Ivory Coast match with his bench. So, what actually happened, right? In the 30th minute, Ivory Coast led 1-0. Diamand, who is going to be a top-tier wide attacker, I'm going to tell you that right now, for years to come, he ran the left wing, past Kimmich, of course. Cross for Diallo, Brown blocked, Diallo shot, but the rebound fell to Kessie, who slotted it in. Germany struggled to respond. So Germany played well-ish for most of the time, I believe, but they just could not get on the score sheet. They had 2 goals that were not allowed, but yeah, didn't really play as urgent, maybe. A first piece of context as well, at halftime, Schlotterbeck was forced off. He rolled his ankle inside the first 10 minutes, played through it for the rest of the half, and then medical staff pulled him at the break. Antonio Rüdiger came in for him. As of recording, it's supposed to be a ligament injury. That's what we know. I just saw on social media that he's out for the tournament, and that sucks because everybody else on defense is even slower than Schlotterbeck. So we're going to the round of 32 without one of the starting center backs. That's a pretty problem, and we gotta flag that. Then the actual match continued. Pavlovic was running, but not very productive. Musiala was getting touches, but couldn't really break the lines, and Havertz had 2 attempts that came to nothing. Wirtz was assisting nicely here and there on the right, but the front line was not really converting, and Germany had a header from a corner ruled out for a foul. Another effort was still allowed for offside, also very close. But then Nagelsmann did the thing. 60th minute, triple sub of Pavlovic, Musiala, Sane. Oh, Sane was on the pitch too. On Undav, Amiri, and Leveling. And 8 minutes later, Amiri crossed for Undav, volley 1-1. What a great cross, by the way. 22 minutes after that, in stoppage time, Nemcha threaded a brilliant pass to Undav. Undav buried it 2-1. Germany are through to round of 32. First knockout match since 2014 coming up. Amazing. So now, why is this a coaching masterclass? And I want to spend a minute on this because it's exactly the kind of decision that separates a good tournament coach from a great one. And last week we said we're not sure whether or not Nagelsmann can be a great one. So again, I try to flag three main things here, okay? One, he made the call early. 60 minutes is not late. In a knockout tournament, most managers wait until the 75th or 80th to make their attacking changes. They want to give the stars a chance to break through. They want to preserve their substitutions. They want to be able to say afterwards, I gave them every opportunity. Nagelsmann instead said, my stars aren't doing it. The structure is not breaking through. I'm changing it now, while there's still time for a new structure to win the match. That's exactly how I do it in Football Manager 26 as well. 60 minutes, hit the clock, I make subs. So Nagelsmann and I, not too different. And that's a coach who trusts his bench. It's also a coach who has done the homework on how to break a stubborn Ivorian defense. A fresh forward with a different profile, Undav, the poacher, Harvard, false nine. Different midfielder, Amiria, the technician, versus Pavlovic, the holder, and width on the left with Leveling. Yeah, so three changes designed to function as a unit, not three independent decisions. One coordinated substitution. Then, secondly, it worked because the subs had been prepared. Undav had scored in the opener. He'd come on as a sub, he'd shown the coaching staff he could come on and could produce. Nagelsmann quote after the match, Dennis is nobody who needs to be prepared, he can jump in right away. Tells you the work that's already been done. The reason a sub can come on and score is because the system already trusts the sub. That trust is building in training and friendlies in the way the coach talks to his bench. If the bench feels like a punishment, the bench scores nothing. If the bench feels like a different option with the same status as the starters, the bench can win, and you can win a World Cup match. And three, he was honest about Schlotterbeck. Press conference direct, we have to wait for the scans, but it doesn't look good. That's a coach not trying to spin away from a problem. He has a center-back issue going into the round of 16. He's saying it out loud. Compared to the kind of false optimism most managers do in a tournament press conference, it's kind of refreshing. And it's the right move strategically. He's telling the squad and the public, this is real, we'll work with what we have. So look at this. I'm actually giving props to Nagelsmann for communicating this week. So what does tells us about Germany's prospects? Germany are now through. They've shown they can win when their starters aren't producing. Undav has now scored in both matches and has 3 goals in 56 minutes of play. The bench has produced. The system is functional. But they didn't dominate Ivory Coast. They were outplayed for a little bit, and the defense had a soft moment that produced the Cassie goal. As Schlotterbeck out, Wirtz, while assisting, still lacks the killer end product that would make him untouchable. I'll upgrade my prediction here. Germany are now probably an 18 to 25% chance to win the World Cup. They were 10 to 12 before. Improvement comes from being through, having the bench depth, and showing they can come from behind. But, and this is the honest read, they are not Spain or Argentina or France. They're not the favorites. They're a real team with a chance, depending on the bracket draw in the next 2 weeks. One quick footnote, Ivory Coast manager Emir Seyfay came out on the press conference and accused Germany of a lack of fair play, specifically calling out Nathaniel Brown and his behavior on the pitch. Brown is 20 and he had a bit of an attitude during the match, and that's a coach's eye footer for Nagelsmann to deal with. Like, young players need to be reminded that every opponent is watching and judging, and Brown gave Ivory Coast a story to take home. Managed that in private, but the match itself was fair, and Fay's complaint reads more like a coach venting after a tough loss than a real grievance. The final group match is against Ecuador on Thursday. Ecuador will be desperate. They need a result to qualify. The match is genuinely a knockout for both teams in effect, because well, Germany can see how they fare in like a game that feels like a knockout game, at least for the opponent, and we'll see what Germany looks like when they're not chasing. Okay, so from Germany to the actual fairy tales of the tournament, Cabo Verde and Curaçao, both teams playing way above their FIFA ranking. Yeah, both teams should not on paper be doing what they're doing, and that's the most interesting part of the tournament. So the fairy tales, Cabo Verde, Curaçao, and what the 48-team World Cup is actually for. So Cabo Verde, Uruguay, 2-2, right? Cabo Verde, I told you, population of 600,000 people. The whole country, all the islands, every single person. That's less than half of Munich. The team is nicknamed the Blue Sharks, Os Tubarões Azuis. Oh, I tried, sorry. Azur, I tried. And before the tournament, the entire World Cup history was never qualified for one. They drew Spain 0-0, and now they drew Uruguay 2-2. Uruguay, by the way, is also a two-time World Cup winner. They have 4 stars on their chest. I could tell you why, but maybe you know. If not, let me know. Then I'll tell you in the next episode. So here's the breakdown. Kevin Pina, I told you, 21st minute, scored Cabo Verde's first World Cup goal, a free kick from 32 meters that went through a gap in the wall and into the bottom. Crazy. Uruguay then came back, got up 2-1, and then in the end, the goalie made a mistake, and Helio Varela for Cabo Verde made the 2-2. They're now in second place in Group H, second place with 1 match to play against Saudi Arabia. They could win it, they could draw it, and Cabo Verde could go to the knockout stage of the World Cup. Amazing. I want to take a moment with this. Cabo Verde, 600,000 people. If they qualify, they're going to play either Norway or France or Senegal or Iraq in the round of 16. They're going to play one of the actual heavyweight teams in the tournament. Yeah, Norway, France. They will probably lose, but they will be there. The coaches are, and this is the kind of thing that doesn't get said enough in football. Cabo Verde's manager is Bubista, the full name Pedro Letao Brito, a man who has been coaching Cabo Verde youth and the national team for years. They have built this slowly. They have qualified for AFCON, they've invested in the academy system, they have brought in players with Cabo Verdean heritage from Portugal and France. They have, in effect, built a national football culture in a country that didn't even have one 10 years ago. This is what the 48-team World Cup is for. It's not for the favorites to get an easy first round. It's for Cabo Verde to play Spain in the World Cup, for Curaçao to make Eloy Room a story, for Iraq to play France, for the football world to be bigger. I'll be honest, I had concerns about the 48-team format. I thought it would dilute the tournament. It might still, the round of 32. But what's absolutely has done is give 16 more teams a chance to be at a World Cup. And several of them are not just there to make up the numbers. Cabo Verde at this World Cup is genuinely one of the best stories of the tournament. They are not a charity case. They have earned every single point. And the other fairy tale, of course, is Curaçao. Population about 150,000, smaller than my home neighborhood in Bangkok, smaller than my hometown of Würzburg, Germany. They got rolled 7-1 by Germany. In the opener, people wrote them off, and then they faced Ecuador. Eloy Room, their goalkeeper, made 15 saves. 15 saves. I said it twice, I said it one more time, the most in 90 minutes of a World Cup match ever since they started counting in Dr. O'Neill 1966. Ecuador had 3.05 xG, Curaçao 0.48. It should have been a 3-1, it ended 0-0. Curaçao have their first World Cup point. The coach who did this, Dick Advocaat, 70 years of age, Dutch veteran, brought in for this exact tournament. The man's been coaching since before some of his players were born. Yeah, he's calm, he's tactical, and a long career of getting more out of less. Curaçao hired him for one reason: do not embarrass us at the World Cup, help us get something. 2 matches in, he's outperformed that brief. Now what this means, the bigger story across both Cabo Verde and Curaçao is the same. The right coach and the right tournament management, you can be at a World Cup and not just survive, but function. Smaller nations are now generally capable of producing results against bigger nations, if the coach knows what they're doing and the players are organized. That's why Türkiye, with its bigger names and bigger budget, are out. They had Yildiz, Güler, Çalhanoğlu. They had Vincenzo Montella, a Serie A veteran coach. They scored 0 in 180 minutes. They were worse organized than Curaçao or Cabo Verde. The talent gap is real, but the structure gap matters way more. I think we're going to look back on this tournament and remember Cabo Verde at the World Cup, the way we remember Senegal in 2002 or Morocco in 2022, as proof that football is bigger than the heavyweight rivalry and that the sport When it works, it makes room for small nations to write their own story. Okay, from football to volleyball, because I went to VNL matches last week here in Bangkok, and I have to talk about what I saw, because, oh my God. So, the coach's eye on this. The pros can pass for their lives, and I think I know why. So let me set the scene. This past week, I went to the indoor stadium in Hua Mag in Bangkok. I hosted week 2 of the Women's Volleyball Nations League. So volleyball nations league, like I think around 18, I don't even know how many teams of the world's top women volleyball teams are in the tournament, and then they move from city to city. Okay, so a few of them, I think 5 of them were here in Bangkok. I went to 2 of those matches, and I watched the rest on volleyball TV when volleyball TV wasn't shutting down or being unavailable. So what's cool is the crowd, especially for Thai matches. The Thai crowd is amazing. It's famously one of the most intense in volleyball. They pack the place, they cheer upon, great atmosphere. And for context, Thailand won twice. They beat Bulgaria and they beat Canada. Then they lost. I think they lost 0-3 to the Netherlands, and I think they also lost to Uruguay. I forgot. Doesn't really matter, because the actual coaches I think that I want to talk about is why can the pros not pass? Like watching these matches live, with 20 years of coaching team sport behind me, the thing that jumped out on me was repeatedly in every single match, the pros, just like club volleyball players, they struggle to pass. They even my categories, right, Snooze? I mean, first contact passing, the receive of the opponent's serve, the dig of the opponent's attack, the fundamental ball control skill that determines whether your team can run an attack. Now, I'm not saying these players are bad. They're elite. They're top of the best. They're the top 1% of volleyball talent on earth. But the passing was, in places, sloppy, off target, wobbly. Forced setters in reaching for balls that should have been bread and butter. That they took attack systems out of rhythm. Forced predictable, easy to defend swings all the time. I noticed that at the Hua Mag Indoor Stadium. I noticed it on VB TV. It's not a Thailand problem, it's not a Canada problem, it's not a Bulgaria problem, it's a volleyball problem at the very highest level. So now, why is this happening? I think it's because of early specialization. So my read on this is volleyball, just like other sport, has gotten increasingly position specialized over the past 2 decades. In modern play development picks a kid at 12 or 13 and says, you're a middle blocker, you're an opposite, you're an outside hitter. And from that age forward, that kid's training is structured around that one position. The blocking, the hitting, the timing of the roll. The kid becomes excellent at this one thing. The kid does not become excellent at passing, because middle blockers and opposite hitters don't pass at the highest level. The libero passes. The outside hitter sometimes passes. The setter passes occasionally. The middle blocker rarely passes. The opposite never passes. So you have a team where 2 of the 6 on the floor have actively practiced passing as a daily skill since they were teens, and the other 4 have practiced about once a week as a courtesy. This is made worse by the libero rule since, I think, 1998. The libero, the back row defensive specialist who can sub in for back row player at any time, has been the passer. Coaches design systems around getting libero into passing lines. Other players step out, the libero gets the ball. This means at the pro level, when the libero is out of position or has to defend a hard-driven ball at her feet, you suddenly have a left side hitter or a middle blocker passing, and they haven't practiced the skill consistently since they were 13. And they show it. They pass it 50 centimeters off target. The setter scrambles, attack falls apart. And this leads me to a broader pattern, because this happens in football as well. We've talked about it across multiple tactic episodes. The German youth system used to develop generalists. Every player on the pitch could do everything, just 1 or 2 of them better than others. Now German youth is increasingly position specialized. The kid who's a defensive midfielder at 12 is only a defensive midfielder at 22. They don't pass as creatively, they don't dribble as comfortably, because they've been trained to do their position and not the rest. The same in basketball. The pure shooter who can't defend. The same in tennis, the player whose backhand is the hole in the game. The same in cricket, the bowler who can't bat, the batter who can't bowl. In volleyball, the cause of the specialization is passing. When the libero is out of position, the team falls apart. And at the elite level, where serves are 100 kilometers per hour and attacks are hit with 130 kilometers per hour, that's a real repeated problem that shows up in every single match. And what good coaches do about it? The coaches I fix is the boring one. Teach the fundamentals to all the kids. not just a positional specialist. Have your future middle blocker pass for 15 minutes every training. Have your future opposite defend serves twice a week, not twice a month. Build a generalist base, then layer the specialization on top. This is what the Italians did. Italy are the back-to-back VNL champions and the Paris 2024 Olympic gold medalists. Their squad's passing is among the best in the world because they have always emphasized full system development. Their middles pass, their opposites pass, their setters defend. The squad has fewer positional holes because they were built to be a whole team, not 6 specialists glued together. This is also what the best youth coaches have started doing, and that's why, for example, Thailand and Japan, despite being smaller volleyball nations, can take on Canada to 4 sets, 5 sets. The crowd helps, of course, if you're having home games like here in Thailand, but so does the system that trains players to be complete. Now, why this matters. If you take one thing from this segment, specialization makes you lead at one thing and bad at everything else. The best players, the best teams are the ones who are good at one thing and not bad at anything. Middle blocker who can pass is more valuable than a middle blocker who is slightly better at blocking. A defensive midfielder who can dribble is more valuable than a defensive midfielder who is marginally better at tackling. A guard who can rebound is more valuable than a guard who is slightly more efficient from 3. Specialization wins you the next match. Generalism wins you the tournament. This is the lesson from 20 years of coaching team sport that I keep coming back to. And the modern youth development industry across every single sport is building specialists at 12. You're going to spend the next decade dealing with the consequence of that. I want to be careful about overreaching here. Watching 2 matches doesn't make me an expert on professional volleyball. Coaching it for 20 years maybe does. So I have 20 years experience of watching this, of doing this, and I've been seeing this in club volleyball for the longest time. The pattern is real. The fix is hard, and the decisions are made when the players are too young to know any better. And watch the VNL final stages in July. Watch which teams hold up under pressure. The teams with passing depth across the roster. Italy, USA, Japan. They will be the ones that don't fold. The teams that lean entirely on the libero will. When the libero is having an off day, then they get exposed. So, quick wrap. Germany are through after Nagelsmann subs on a masterclass. Undav off the bench twice. Cabo Verde drew Uruguay 2-2 and could actually qualify in their first ever World Cup. Curaçao got a goalkeeper masterclass from Eloy Room with 15 saves, 15. Türkiye are out with the most attempts without a goal in World Cup history. Congratulations. Belgium are quietly mediocre. The mouth covering rule produced its first red card and worked exactly as designed. And the VNL, I went to 2 matches here in Bangkok and watched elite level passing problems in real time, which is the kind of thing 20 years in coaching prepares you to notice. Tonight we have Argentina, Austria, I think, France, Iraq, Norway, Senegal, Jordan, Algeria. Let's see how that goes. Thursday, it's all a blur now. We have Germany versus Ecuador, the final group match for Germany, and the match that Schlotterbeck is unfortunately missing, just like all the other upcoming matches. Next episode, a round of 32 will have started. Knockouts begin. There will be at least 1 shock by Sunday. I think we'll start building towards a knockout stage analysis, and the VNL Week 3 starts July 8th in Japan, so we'll have more volleyball coverage as that develops. If this was worth your time, subscribe. If it wasn't, also subscribe because the number still helps. If anything is wrong, let me know. If anything was unfair, tell me. We have a few more weeks of World Cup left and a lot more to talk about. Tactic, back next Monday. Thank you for listening.